All right, welcome to the Unit 4 review. First, I'm going to go through the unit very briefly and talk about some of the things that you want to make sure you're able to do, and then I'm going to give you some questions to practice your mastery. One note is that you should not go and try those questions until you've studied and gone through the entire unit and feel comfortable with your understanding of all of the content. That way, when you try these questions, it will be as if you were taking a practice test, so that when you look at the solutions, you can score yourself and see how you might have done. All right, so with radical expressions, we began by simplifying them. We looked at how we can rewrite a radical as an exponent, thinking about fractional exponents. That, I think, was the first lesson in Unit 4. And we quickly moved into graphing radical functions. What do those look like? What are their key characteristics? Particularly looking at rate of change and finding average rate of change between 2 points to corroborate our understanding. Important to make sure you know that. We then moved into solving radical equations. We first solved them out of context, and we solved them both by hand using inverse operations and also graphically by sketching the graph either by hand or using a calculator and finding the point of intersection. We can find it exactly using a calculator, or we can approximate if we have a graph by hand. And in solving radical equations, we also solved them in context. So in real-world situations where we were modeling some situation with a radical function, we could use our ability to solve radical equations to analyze and solve problems in the real world. And then we moved into inverse functions, and we actually looked at a real-world application where we were given a function for the period of a pendulum in terms of the length of the pendulum. But the question asked us to find the length over and over again. And so we realized the need for inverse functions. It'd be a great idea to go ahead and redo that discovery problem to sort of solidify your understanding of how the inverse functions are useful. And we looked at inverse functions in general and talked about how the graphs of functions and their inverse functions are related, as well as the domain and range. So on and so forth. So make sure that you feel confident in all of those different areas, and then go ahead and move on to the questions, which I will put up now.